Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. Today is October 13th, and it is Monday. Hopefully, all you guys had a wonderful day at work or school or whatever you do during your day. And, hopefully, as a whole, you're doing wonderful. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. We are on our way to 500 subscribers by the end of the year on YouTube. I believe we can do it. We are literally one subscriber away from 400 last time I checked. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated. And if you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing as well. All funds go to me. They help me pay for things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of that. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support on this content. And with that being said, let's get into the news from today. Moving on to the Trump administration segment, as we do, the first topic we have today is quite interesting as nobody's really talking about it. JD Vance has been kicked off of live television. In an ABC News interview with George Stephanopoulos, uh, however you say that, I am so sorry. I cannot pronounce that for the life of me. Someone said it's pronounced like Metropolis, but hey. JD Vance was kicked off of air while the two talked about allegations that Tom Homan accepted a $50,000 bribe. During his appearance, Vance slowly started to lose his patience, saying, "I saw many reports that Tom Homan accepted the bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's George, why fewer and fewer people are watching your program and why you are losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about a story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, and I don't even know the video that you're talking about." He then continued on a tangent on the government shutdown and the Democrats, which prompted a calm response from Stephanos, where he said, "It's not a weird left wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether insinuate. That's not how you say that word. Sorry. I didn't insinuate anything. It took me a second to process that. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted 50,000 and as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September of 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time." He would then proceed to cut off Vance and said to his viewers, "We'll be right back." The balls from this guy are insane and absolutely amazing. What a guy, truly. If you haven't seen the clip and you want to watch JD Vance get absolutely dogged on by a reporter, I truly recommend it. It was a great thing for me to watch this morning. Really lifted my spirits, if you will. But we all know that Tom Homan accepted the bribe. There are multiple reports of that, and there's a lot of proof of that, even from the FBI themselves. I find it interesting that nobody's really reporting on this as a whole, because no one's really talking about the fact that JD Vance was just kicked off of live television. I feel like that's something we should be talking about. If the vice president is being kicked off of live television, it's really interesting, isn't it? Um, you know, I mean, this guy full on kicked the vice president of the United States off of his show, and it was truly beautiful to witness. Genuinely, it was great. It really was. Round of applause for, I'm going to butcher this again, but Stephanos, if that's how you say it. It was truly great to witness this. In other news, the White House believes that it controls Congress with an iron fist. Steve Bannon has compared the Republican controlled Congress to Duma, Russia's ceremonial parliamentary assembly, claiming that a senior administration advisor has joked about controlling Capitol Hill with an iron fist. He said the failure of the Republicans to stand up to Trump is because of Trump's 4 years, quote unquote, in the wilderness during Joe Biden's time in office, pardoning Trump's resolve. Bannon said he's doing things now that he wouldn't have even considered in the first time. He's jackhammering away on levels that you haven't seen before. MAGA is going to hear this and think that it's not a problem when it's a massive problem. There is a separation of power as outlined by the Constitution in this country, and that it is not something this administration can take away in any way, shape, or form. This administration should not be joking about controlling Capitol Hill with an iron fist because, for one, it isn't legal, but also, they don't control Capitol Hill with an iron fist. Maybe they do when it comes to votes right now, but come midterms, that ain't gonna happen anymore. It's really not. If it were any other administration, they'd be gone. They would be impeached for even a story coming out about this. This would be one of the biggest controversies of all time if it was any other administration. And I hate that for some stupid reason, that just isn't the case for Trump. It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter, who he attacks, who he goes after. Literally the other week he said that he took away freedom of speech. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And it is insane that it doesn't matter. There is nothing that should make that man special. Genuinely, I know so much about Donald J. Trump, Donald John Trump, if you will. And there is not a single thing about that man that should make him special in any way, shape, or form. In other news, the Trump administration is seemingly nervous about No King's Day. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy claimed that the No King's Day protests were part of Antifa, saying the No King's Day protests, Maria, are really frustrating. I mean, this is part of Antifa, paid protesters. It begs the question, who is funding it? But yeah, Democrats want to wait for a big rally of No King's protests when the bottom line is, who's running the show in the Senate? Chuck Schumer is not running the show. The No King's protesters or organizers are running the show. Is AOC threatening a primary against Chuck Schumer? Is she running the show? That last part really confuses me. I don't know why he said that at all. But hey, whatever. Antifa is not affiliated with the No King's Day protests in any way, shape, or form. If you go to their page, you can see the list of partners with Antifa or with the No King's Day protests, sorry. And Antifa is not one of them because it's not an organization, it's an ideology. What? Isn't that crazy? Mind blowing, isn't it? It is hilarious to me that they are so stuck up that they can't even consider the idea that maybe people aren't being paid to protest because they aren't in any way, shape, or form. If I was being paid to protest, I'd be out there damn near every weekend. But that simply is just not the case. Like genuinely, it's not. This is millions of American citizens who are fed up with the current administration and who are using their First Amendment right to speak against it. If you really think Democrats are paying millions, and I mean millions of Americans to speak out against the current administration that is tearing this country to shreds, left and right, you need to get your head out of the sand, bro. Genuinely, because that is not the case. It is really not the case. If Democrats were paying people to go out there and protest, I guarantee you the numbers would be so much higher just because of how many people can't afford to live in this country. Like, it is expensive to live in this country, and so many people can't afford that. This is people going out there and protesting against an administration that is making their lives harder on a daily basis. No one is getting paid for that. And if you really, really genuinely think that people are being paid to protest in this country, you gotta get off Fox News. Genuinely. Like, you gotta find a better source. AP News is a great one. Great place to start. PBS, great one. Great place to start. Anyways, Trump is sending the National Guard members home for not being fit enough. Some Texas National Guard soldiers who were deployed to Chicago are being sent home for failing to meet fitness standards. The Texas Military Department confirmed that a small group of National Guard troops sent to Chicago last week have been replaced for not being in compliance with the validation process. This prompted praise from Pete Hegseth, who wrote in a post on Twitter, "Crackdown on fat troops," who I skipped a line, sorry. This prompted praise from Pete Hegseth, who is cracking down on fat troops due to it being a quote-unquote bad look. In a post on Twitter, Hegseth wrote, "Standards are back at the Department of War." Sorry for skipping that line. Anyways, it is wild to me that they expect National Guard troops to, be shredded and built like Greek gods. Like, it's just not going to happen. For one, they released harsher rules when it comes to fitness essentially like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So it would be impossible for people to get up to that standard in 2 weeks. Like, that's just not going to happen. But a majority of people are just not that fit in any way, shape, or form. Like, that is just not possible for so many people. As mentioned many times throughout my life, or throughout this page, I guess, I grew up around fire departments and the fire system and all that due to my dad being a fire chief and having a bunch of other positions throughout the fire departments throughout my life. And I've seen some firefighters, fatter than the people that they are sending home, genuinely, which is why I say just because someone is bigger doesn't mean they aren't fit or they aren't strong. They are definitely capable of doing that job, especially when the National Guard people are just standing around most of the time. I've seen plenty of extremely capable people within the fire department who you might consider overweight who are able to do their job flawlessly without an issue at all in the world. It genuinely, like, it is insane how physically fit firefighters are when it comes to it. Doesn't matter what they look like, they are extremely fit. And I guarantee you, there are plenty of National Guardsmen who are the exact same, genuinely. A majority of these National Guard troops are just going to be standing around. At the end of the day, they really are. That's what all of the pictures show. That's what all the videos show. They are just standing around, causing a disturbance. I do not think that it is necessary to send people home based on their size, because it does not mean that they aren't capable of doing their job. Genuinely. Like, I mean, people in the military are going to shoot people. That's not like the whole scope of a military job. But like during a wartime, people in the military are going to shoot people. Someone being a larger individual does not stop them from shooting people. Yes, there's more into the military. I know there's more that goes into that. But, like, if you look at it, like, basically, you know, positions in the military, for the most part, are going to be shooting people. And, like, someone being a bigger individual, you're not going to be stopped shooting people by your size. Genuinely. Someone's going to rip on me for saying that. I just know it already. Anyways, moving on into our ICE segment. A man spent 43 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, just to be grabbed up by ICE in minutes after walking free from jail. On October 3rd of 2025, hello car, Subriman Subu Vidam walked out of the Huntington State Correctional Institution. Hello. We have a little interruption right now. What's going on? I don't know if he's in the camera. Do you want to say hello? How's it going, dude? Okay, anyways, Subriman Subu Vidam walked out of the Huntington State Correctional Institution in Pennsylvania after being in prison for 43 years. The man spent nearly his entire life behind bars for a murder he did not commit and was released after a court found that to be the case. But he never made it home. Minutes after leaving the facility, ICE officers were waiting to detain him, acting on a deportation order from decades ago. He is now located in the Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Virginia. And a statement from his family read, "The immigration issue is remnant of Subu's original case. Since that wrongful conviction has been officially vacated and all charges against Subu have been dismissed, we ask that the immigration court reopens the case." Free this man, genuinely. Like, his family said, this is a component of a case that has been ruled a wrongful conviction. And he should not have to be deported because of that. Because in the case, in the ruling by the judge has ruled that what people claimed he did, 43 years ago, is not true. And the fact that ICE agents are still deporting him because of that is insane. Not to mention the fact that ICE agents are waiting out of facilities to prey on people like this is absolutely disgusting and needs to be stopped. He should be able to walk free and live his life, see his family, something he hasn't been able to do for 43 years. I should not be stopping him from doing so, especially if he's an innocent man. Fuck ICE, genuinely. In other news, parents of a U.S. Marine were detained by ICE. ICE agents have been reportedly detained by a U.S. or ICE agents have reportedly detained parents of a U.S. Marine while they were visiting their daughter at a camp in Pendleton, California. Esteban Rios and Luisia Rodriguez were attempting to visit their daughter, who is pregnant and married to another Marine on a base, when they were taken into custody by ICE agents. Their son, Steve Rios, who is also a Marine, joined the military because of his parents. He said when his parents tried to enter the base, ICE agents stopped and detained them both, despite the two having pending green card applications sponsored by their son. ICE claims they are illegal aliens who have violated the law, despite neither of them having criminal records and both of them being in the citizenship process. They always say that they want people to come here legally and go through the immigration process legally. Yet, anytime people do, ICE detains them anyways. It is absolutely crazy that families can't even visit each other anymore without ICE coming after them. It is honestly absolutely disgusting that that is the case. Genuinely, families should be able to meet with each other, hang out with each other, have parties, have events. That's something that families should be able to do. And ICE agents are standing in the way of that. And it is not only depressing, but it's disgusting. It really is. Fuck ICE. They are the true criminals when it comes to this country, and they do not deserve support in any way, shape, or form. Anyways, moving on into our other news segment for tonight, we have two topics. The first one being a massive flood has hit Alaska, leaving 20 unaccounted for. Communities in western Alaska are dealing with the remnants of Typhoon Hai Long, with hurricane force winds and massive flooding. A rescue aircraft has been dispatched to the tiny villages of Kipnuk and Queen Gillengock. That is not how you pronounce that either. I tried to learn that and I couldn't figure it out, so I am sorry. Where up to 20 people have now gone missing, according to Jeremy Zayadek, a spokesperson for the state Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Zayadek told AP News, "We have received reports that people's homes have floated away and that people were potentially in those homes. Alaska's National Guard has been activated to assist in helping the residents finding those who are missing." This is absolutely horrible news, and I hope that they are able to find everyone missing, throughout this incident. Will the administration help with this one, since they're all about sending in the National Guard to areas that actually need assistance? Probably not, unfortunately. But I really do hope that they can get all the help that they need. As we've seen with this administration, they aren't the fondest of supporting disaster recovery. Across the country, they have essentially refused to do so, which is truly unfortunate. But I really hope that isn't the case here. I hope that Alaskans are able to get the help and assistance that they need, because this is unfortunate. It really is. And the fact that people are missing isn't great. Anyways, moving on into our final topic for tonight, North Carolina will now be redistricting. Republicans in North Carolina plan to redistrict and create a new congressional map for the GOP. North Carolina House Speaker Destin Hall announced the agreement to redraw the state's districts and add one more Republican. Hall said in the statement, "President Trump earned a clear mandate from voters of North Carolina and the rest of the country, and we intend to defend it by drawing an additional Republican congressional seat." Notice how, once again, rather than letting the constituents vote on it, a red state is once again forcing this on its constituents. My one flex as a California will always be, throughout this administration, that we have a voice in the redistricting happening in our state. And even though I may not like Gavin Newsom at all in any way, shape, or form, I will at least thank him for that. I think that it is a great thing that Gavin Newsom is pushing for the constituents to vote on it rather than the red states who are just forcing it on their people. I feel bad for red states' constituents because you guys do not get a say in this. You really don't. And that sucks. You guys should have a say in if your state gets redistricted or not. And I think it's awful that you don't. But hey, maybe you guys can, flip some of these seats, make them blue anyways. I got faith. Let's see it. Get it done. But with that being said, thank you all for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. It has definitely been a very interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. As mentioned, we are on our way to 500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year, and all the support would be greatly appreciated as we try to hit that goal. We are literally one away from 400. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated. And if you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing. All funds go to me. They may pay for things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of that. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support on this content. And with that being said, thank you everyone for watching today's episode, and I will see you all